Something important is happening right now that millions of Americans who are retired or close to retirement need to understand before it is too late. The economic landscape in the United States is shifting in ways that directly affect your monthly income, your savings, your benefits, and the financial security you have spent decades building. These are not small adjustments. These are structural changes to the way retirement and savings work in this country. And if you are not paying attention right now, you could find yourself on the wrong side of decisions that cannot easily be undone. Most people hear the words economic policy and tune out because it sounds like something for politicians and economists to argue about on television. But what is unfolding in 2026 is different. These changes are moving into the real world, into the accounts, the benefit checks, the tax rules, and the savings plans that everyday Americans depend on every single month. If you are receiving Social Security, if you have a 401k or an IRA, if you are counting on Medicare, or if you are living on a fixed income, what happens in Washington this year is going to land directly in your wallet. The first thing you need to understand is that the conversation around Social Security is no longer just background noise. For years, people have been told that Social Security is safe, that the trust funds are secure, and that any real problem is decades away. But the pressure on those trust funds has been building faster than most people realize, and new economic policies being debated and in some cases already moving forward in 2026 are accelerating that timeline. Projections that once pointed to fund shortfalls in the mid-2030s are now being revisited, and some analysts are raising serious concerns that without significant intervention, benefit reductions could become a real conversation much sooner than anyone planned for. This matters to you because a reduction in Social Security benefits is not an abstract concept. For tens of millions of retired Americans, Social Security is not a supplement, it is the foundation. It covers rent, groceries, utilities, and medications. A cut of even 10 or 15% would push a significant number of seniors into genuine financial hardship. And the difficult truth is that cuts would not arrive with a lot of warning. By the time most people find out, the window to prepare has already closed. On top of that, new economic policy directions are putting pressure on inflation in ways that are not being talked about clearly or honestly in most mainstream coverage. Tariff adjustments, trade restructuring, and supply chain shifts that are underway right now are already working their way into consumer prices. For a retired person living on a fixed income, inflation is one of the most dangerous forces in existence. Your check stays the same while the cost of everything you buy goes up. The cost of living adjustment, known as COLA, is designed to help offset that, but it is calculated using formulas that do not always reflect the real expenses of older Americans, particularly when it comes to healthcare and housing costs, which tend to rise faster than the general inflation rate used in the calculation. What this means in practical terms is that even if your Social Security payment gets a COLA increase next year, that increase may not come close to covering what you are actually losing to higher prices. You could receive a larger number on paper and still be worse off in real life. That gap is something you need to plan for, not assume away. Now let us talk about savings, because the policy changes affecting retirement accounts are significant and many people are completely unaware of how they work. Rules around required minimum distributions, contribution limits, and tax treatment of retirement accounts have been in a period of change, and 2026 is bringing more pressure on these rules as the government looks for ways to address revenue needs. When Washington needs money, one of the places it looks is the large pool of tax-deferred savings sitting in 401k accounts and traditional IRAs across the country. The question of when and how that money gets taxed is a political and economic pressure point right now. If you have a traditional IRA or a 401k, that money has not been taxed yet. The government has an agreement with you that says you will pay taxes when you withdraw it in retirement. But policy environments change, and there are active discussions about whether the tax treatment of those withdrawals might be adjusted going forward. Any change in that direction would directly affect how much of your own savings you actually get to keep. This is not a hypothetical. This is the kind of thing that happens quietly inside budget legislation and tax reform packages, and by the time it makes headlines, the decision has often already been made. If you are still in the window where you can make strategic decisions about your accounts, including whether to consider converting some traditional IRA funds to a Roth IRA and pay taxes now rather than later, that window deserves serious attention. A Roth conversion means you pay the taxes today at whatever your current rate is, and then qualified withdrawals in retirement are tax-free. If tax rates or tax rules change down the road, the money in a Roth is protected from that. This is not the right move for everyone, and the calculation depends on your age, your current income, your tax bracket, and your overall financial picture. But given the current policy environment, it is a conversation worth having with a qualified financial professional as soon as possible, not someday, not next year, right now. Medicare is another area where economic policy shifts are creating real uncertainty for retirees. The cost of Medicare, particularly Medicare Part B and Part D premiums, has been rising steadily, and policy changes that affect how drug prices are negotiated, how provider payments are structured, and how the program is funded all have downstream effects on what you pay out of pocket every month. Premium increases that seem small in isolation can add up to hundreds of dollars a year, and for someone on a fixed income, that is not a minor inconvenience. That is real money leaving your budget every single month with nothing to replace it. There is also a specific issue affecting people who receive both Social Security and Medicare, which is the majority of retirees. Medicare Part B premiums are deducted directly from your Social Security check. So when Medicare costs go up and your Social Security COLA does not fully keep pace, your net monthly payment can actually go down, even though technically you received an increase. This phenomenon has happened before, and the current economic policy environment creates real conditions for it to happen again. Knowing this ahead of time gives you the ability to look at your budget, identify where you might need to make adjustments, and avoid being blindsided when your check arrives and it is smaller than expected. For people who receive SSI or SSDI, the stakes are just as high and in some ways more acute. SSI recipients often have very little margin in their monthly budget, and any disruption to payment amounts or eligibility rules can create an immediate crisis. SSDI recipients face their own set of pressures, including ongoing scrutiny of program costs by policymakers looking to reduce federal spending. Any changes to work incentive rules, benefit calculation formulas, or eligibility reviews could affect people who are counting on those payments to survive. If you or someone you care about is on SSI or SSDI, staying informed about policy developments is not optional. It is essential. One of the most important things you can do right now is get a clear picture of exactly where you stand financially. That sounds simple, but many people have a vague sense of their income and expenses without really knowing the numbers. Pull out your award letter from Social Security if you have one. Look at what your current benefit amount is and when your last COLA adjustment was applied. Review your Medicare premium deductions so you know what is actually coming out of your check. Look at any savings or retirement accounts you have and understand what the balance is, what the rules are around withdrawals, and what your tax situation looks like. Having that information clearly in front of you is the starting point for making good decisions. If you are not yet at full retirement age and you are still weighing when to claim Social Security, the current environment adds another layer of complexity to that decision. Claiming early gives you more years of payments, but at a permanently reduced amount. Claiming later increases your monthly benefit potentially significantly. In a world where benefit cuts are being discussed and the future of the trust fund is uncertain, some people are reconsidering the conventional wisdom around delaying. If you claim later and benefits are reduced in the meantime, the math changes. This is another area where getting personalized guidance from a Social Security specialist or financial advisor can make a real difference in your long-term outcome. Beyond the decisions you make about your own accounts and benefits, there is a broader issue of preparation. If economic conditions shift significantly in the next 12 to 24 months, whether that means higher inflation, a market downturn, or changes in government program funding, people who have thought through their situation in advance will be in a far better position than those who assumed everything would stay the same. Building even a small emergency cushion, reviewing recurring expenses for anything that can be reduced or eliminated, and understanding what assistance programs you might qualify for in a more difficult scenario are all steps that cost you nothing to take and could be enormously valuable if conditions change. There are programs available to lower-income seniors that many people do not know about or have not applied for. The Extra Help program for Medicare prescription drug costs can save eligible people hundreds or even thousands of dollars a year. The Medicare savings programs can help cover Part B premiums for people who meet income and asset limits. SNAP benefits, formerly known as food stamps, are available to many seniors who assumed they would not qualify. Low-income home energy assistance is another program that can help with utility costs. None of these programs are charity. They are benefits that exist specifically for situations like the ones many retired Americans are facing. If you are not sure whether you qualify, contacting your local area agency on aging is a good starting point, and it is completely free. The political environment around all of these programs is also something to pay attention to. Budget negotiations in Washington in 2026 are going to involve difficult conversations about federal spending, and social programs are almost always on the table in those discussions. How those negotiations resolve will have direct effects on benefit levels, eligibility thresholds, and program structures. Staying engaged, staying informed, and understanding what is being proposed and what it would mean for you is part of protecting yourself. You cannot respond to changes you do not know are coming. What is happening right now is not something to panic about. Panic does not help anyone, and it does not change outcomes. What does change outcomes is information, preparation, and action. The people who are going to navigate 2026 and the years ahead successfully are the ones who are paying attention today, who are asking the right questions, who are reviewing their financial situation with clear eyes, and who are getting the guidance they need to make smart decisions before the decisions are made for them. If you have family members, a spouse, adult children, or close friends who are retired or approaching retirement, make sure they are aware of what is happening. These changes affect households, not just individuals, and having the people around you informed and prepared creates a stronger safety net for everyone involved. Share what you have learned. Encourage the people you care about to take a close look at their own situation and not wait for a crisis to start paying attention. The system is changing. The rules are shifting. The economic environment is more uncertain than it has been in a long time. But uncertainty is not the same as helplessness. You have more options and more tools available to you than you might realize, and the single most powerful thing you can do with any of them is act while you still have time to act. Do not let the window close. Get the information you need, take stock of where you stand, and make the moves that protect what you have worked your entire life to build.